System riding to the core. Yeah. Reppin' inner city left.
This is the Inner City Left broadcast. Today is Thursday, January 8th. I'm Amin TMK. The man over there dying is Amoja Little Tanky somewhere.
Metaphorically, please.
It was, you okay? I think you had some water before, which is good. As my mom said, mom would say it went down the wrong pipe, you know?
Wow.
Anyway, whatever. How are you doing today, man? Other than you almost losing yourself there for a second.
You know me, man. I'm just in that place trying to catch as much knowledge as I can, give what we know to the people, offer as little conjecture as possible. You know what I'm saying? Facts, receipts. You know what I'm saying? Calm, level-headed, astute, leftist analysis.
You know how they be saying, they be doing in the videos. Yeah, I'm here to give you some opinions too, because I'm telling you right now, I'm on the opposite. I'm fed up, man. I'm fed up with this silliness. It's no more Mr. Nice Amin. You're not gonna have to be.
That's not.
You're
good,
not gonna
guys.
have to be. Y'all. It's bad out here, man. Let's get serial. Let's get serial about what's
Before
happening.
we get into this, if you are watching, please like, please subscribe. Check on the little thing to make sure that all of the videos are fed to you, because the algorithm be doing what it do. You know what I'm saying? And now more than ever, y'all, we really got to be on this knowledge.
I don't want to be always like, oh, the bearer of bad news. Hey, everybody, let's focus on this thing. I don't always want to do that, but we have to, because the world is a geopolitical world and people are dying every day all over the world. And it's mainly the United States Western imperial process that is doing that. And that's why it's kind of like no more Mr. Nice Amin. Like, forget this stuff. Like, let's okay, America is seizing oil tankers. They've already seized several of the oil tankers previous to their abduction of Maduro in the Caribbean. And now, you know what? I'm just going to play this. We'll talk. And you can be good cop. You can be a cop, of course. But in this metaphorical sense, you know what I mean? Because I'm going to be more of the bad one. So here we go.
Let's get it.
Let's do it.
Shadow fleets have been operating for a while, right? You know, we know this. Supplying Russia, Iran, and, you know, etc. Why now?
Well, I don't think we should think that we've only been taking action against shadow fleets starting yesterday. It was a very high-profile operation. There was another one in the Caribbean. But as John Healey said to my colleague, the Secretary of State for Defence, said to Parliament last night, this is part of an ongoing global effort to crack down on these shadow fleets. And it's really important, because the money from this illicit oil can go to funding either terrorism or Russia's war effort in Ukraine.
Every day, are we?
We don't always comment on what our military is involved in, but we were very happy to be involved yesterday because we saw it as being in our national interest, and that's always the North Star.
Some responses from you?
This is fucking stupid. Okay? Ironically, I thought that was MERS at first. You know, I guess all these little bald European white guys kind of looked similar. This is fucking stupid.
He was too short. Yeah, MERS is a big guy.
A seizure of a merchant vessel can be viewed as an act of war. This is fucking stupid. This is a ship that was, it was running under a Russian flag. This wasn't a Venezuelan vessel, although it was coming from Venezuela and they had tracked it. This vessel had gotten all the way from Venezuela to just outside of Iceland. So it was really going. But when a country like Britain, you know, it's like, yes, we took part of it, you know, like whether or not Russia wants to retaliate against the United States, and it does not seem as if that's their motivation right now. Britain is not the United States. They're not nearly as strong. You know what I'm saying? And like rushing out to be like, oh, yeah. So let's also look at this concept of a shadow fleet and words like illicit oil, which is just ridiculous. what makes oil illicit? Illicit, right? Now, I mean, this is the ruination of words, right? If you're against narcotics, you can see narcotics as illicit, right? But oil is just a commodity. It's a commodity that is traded on world markets all around the world. Okay, so when we're talking about something like a shadow fleet, that's just inherently fucking stupid. Because what that means is these countries have chosen not to insure their merchant vessels through a bank or insurance agency in the West. You know what I'm saying? Most of these type of shipments are insured by Lloyd's of London. And so what they mean is these vessels aren't paying a tax to the West. You know what I'm saying? They're not giving, so essentially the West sees itself as the inherent overlord to determine any shipment around the world. And if you don't insure your merchant vessels through one of these Western insurance companies, they view you as a shadow fleet. So now we're at the point whereas you either pay us to move your products or bad things can happen. That's extortion. That's the extortion racket, but done on an international level, right? And this is why we hammer home why it's important to look at what happens geopolitically, because what happens in the world will happen in the United States.
Shadow fleets, huh? There are shadow fleets, dude. Is this the Pirates of the Caribbean? Is it the shadow fleet? Why they use this there's such a racist undertone, and it's always just like illicit oil, like you said, and people just fall for it. Like, I do want to also say, and you think you were trying to hint at this, just about a week ago, Keir Starmer was like, we have nothing to do with this Venezuela Maduro kidnapping. We weren't a part of it. I ain't hear nothing about it. I woke up to the same news that you did. I was like, what? I got to get all the information first. I can't even talk. I had this interview, but I didn't get all the information. And now you have their officials saying, oh, we were proud to be a part of this. Kind of like one of those things where, again, Donald Trump is kind of squeezing everybody
wants to
a little
be part
bit
of the
more.
Winning team.
And I think they have the faith in Trump for some reason. But, I think about also is like, I hope you're ready, Greenland. I hope you're ready I hope you know now, like, it's not no playing. My other question, I guess, sort of is like, what is the response going to be from Russia? We've seen the drone being sent to one of Putin's residences, to a very specific room that they thought he would be in. I think me and you believe it was an assassination attempt.
I think Putin thinks it too. I think he does.
I would feel that way. I would feel that way.
He probably hold a little tender.
But they did give the drone back to the United States. So my question is sort of like, when is Russia gonna push back, and what are these tankers, do you think, that they're taking?
All I can say is, we quote Medvedev a lot, traditional Russian, right? I think it's important to show many different Russian perspectives, not just like what Putin thinks, because it's important for Americans to think about Russia not as the monolith that Putin leads, but like a country with identities and personalities, right? So I think another person that's really important in the Russian overall apparatus of military people, right, is Kadyrov, essentially the leader of Chechnya, okay? This is a person that's literally talking about, I don't understand why, if the Americans are going to go and just grab, people like, Maduro, we should probably just grab Zelensky. Like, this is not Putin. Kadyrov is, and first off, Kadyrov is a quite capable man. Like whatever else you like. For those of you guys that are MMA fans, this is the patron of the Wolf. What's his name? Can't think of his name.
Hamzat Chimaev.
Hamzat Chimaev. This guy trains with Hamzat Chimaev. He is patron to Hamzat Chimaev. This is a very capable man, right? That probably very few world leaders would want to have a physical engagement with. You know what I'm saying? And so when they're openly talking about like this type of talk, it shows you how much more mellow Putin is, right? Than where the rest of the very Russian masculines are that have any type of governmental power. You know, what will Russia do? Lord only knows. But I know that Kyiv has been blacked out for at least a day. Pretty much the entire country, you know. That was one of the things that Trump, you know, joked about. Oh, we went into Venezuela and we turned off the lights in the whole country. Okay, for a couple of hours. But the entire country of Ukraine has been out of power. And this is what you've seen as the consistent, persistent attacks from the Russian military on energy infrastructure throughout Ukraine, you know, so that they can lean on these things now because, you know, energy is used for so many things. First off, it's the wintertime in Ukraine right now, so you need energy to warm your homes. But also, a lot of Ukrainians are working, building military industrial complex. You know, there are Ukrainians that are literally building drones, you know, for the military at home, right, so that they can be sent out to the front lines. Well, you can't do those kind of things if there is no power. Right. And so all of these things continue to have a deleterious effect on the Ukrainian military readiness. And this is why they're being pushed back all across the front line. You know, my question remains ultimately, how much can the Ukrainians lose? What will it take to maintain cohesion before you reach a point of just disintegration of the military? Because continuous holds on the front line, like we're seeing. So Pokrovsk has fallen, Konstantivka, there's a major engagement happening right there. You know, there's, again, press on the northern borders in the Sumy area. I mean, the entire line of conflict is engaged right now, and they're losing cities every week. It's not on the news, but it is in reality. So that goes back to, again, what's happening with the United States. They're choosing to punish Russia for its success, and they're trying to limit Russia's ability to offer petroleum. This is where those fleets come in, right? Because big game, great game politics, this is more than what's happening in Venezuela. Venezuela is about everything that was happening to all of these BRICS countries, even though Venezuela is not a BRICS country. Their dealings with almost all of those BRIC countries are prototypes, right? So like now the United States is able to threaten, right, Russian ability to move oil in certain parts of the world. And this becomes, again, a threat for China. Because ultimately, this is China. Russia is China's petroleum dealer of last resort, right? Like if all else fails, they know they'll always have Russia, right? But what the Americans are trying to do is make China think, you know, can you really count on Russian oil? You know, and time will tell on those things. Ultimately, Russia will have to do something more aggressive than what it's doing, or it's going to die the death of 1,000 cuts. But they are winning on the battlefield, you know. Yeah.
Well, every time America or the West does something to hurt Russia, they punish Ukraine. You know, and I mean, the Ukrainians are certainly feeling it. They're not saying to themselves, well, Russia's not doing anything. And right now, that's just, again, when we talk about this sometimes ourselves, like the West is losing in Ukraine. And it's one of the few places that they're really losing right now, at least in terms of, you know, like the hot wars and the battles. And everyone knows the Russian military is, as many people smarter than me, has said is number one in the world right now, and that's what they do. That's what they can do, and that is how they support the rest of the global South. I know people want to see more, but just the amount of time, effort, money, weapons that Europe and the Americans have sent over there is, they always talk about, well, they're weakening Russia, they're weakening their capacity. Well, Russia's weakening the West's capacity as well, and maybe far more. You're muted, but I think I know what you're going to say. Yeah, you're muted, but I think, you were into what were you saying?
Militarily. The United States is being weakened militarily, but there are far more ways to project power than just pure military. Like the United States military in and of itself was not what allowed the success, right, in Venezuela as it stands, right? That was intelligence. And these are the ways where but again, the Americans still have economic levers they can push, right? So like it's a full spectrum war against Russia. It's not a full spectrum war against China yet. It's still mostly economic. The Russians are winning militarily in a tactical way, but the West and the Americans are winning economically in a strategic way.
Yeah. So that's what, and ultimately that's what it is. When America wins propaganda-wise or terrorism-wise or whatever it is, that aspect of statecraft, they punish Ukraine militarily because that's where they're superior. And then what I think the point is, again, just reiterating sort of this is the way that Russia can affect change for the global South. You want thousands of Wagner troops to be in Venezuela or whatever it may be. But at the end of the day, this is a big game, and you have to play to your strengths. But you mentioned Venezuela. That's good. Let's move on here. I'm going to play this video and then we're just going to I'll get your response and we can talk a little bit more about it. It's pretty self-explanatory, I say. Here we go.
So proud of what the president did, and Marco Rubio and Pete Hegseth and everybody, our military, Maria Corina Machado, and what they did in Venezuela is going to change Latin America. This is the start of changing Venezuela. Then we're going to fix Cuba. Nicaragua will get fixed. Next year, we'll get a new president in Colombia. We're going to start. The democracy is coming back to this hemisphere.
So the president.
I got Tangy. We are going to bring democracy by taking democracy. You see what I'm saying? That's 5-dimensional chess.
Are we insinuating now that Colombia is somehow not a democracy? I mean, so I just find it ironic that right wing now means democracy as the United States is concerned, right? And this is why it was a very dangerous game that Colombia played, and also Brazil in muddying the waters as to what happened with Maduro when this was an election that was certified by their judiciary at the highest levels. So now everyone gets to play is this a legitimate leader? I don't know. And no one looks at the people that are quite obviously no longer legitimate leaders, like Zelensky. You know what I'm saying? To insinuate that Petro, the president of Colombia, is not the legitimate president, it's astronomically hubristic, right? It's so American, right? The moment you disagree with America, you're no longer the democratically elected president. It's just fascinating, but these are the things that they've done. As it relates to Greenland, Greenland is it's a complicated subject in that there's no way to talk about it without acknowledging the elephant in the room. And that is that Greenland shouldn't belong to Denmark either, right? It doesn't belong to Denmark. It's a colonial holding of Denmark, which is a NATO member. It shouldn't belong to the United States. Greenland should be its own country. Overwhelmingly, the people that live in Greenland are indigenous people. There's not a lot of people from Denmark. There's not a lot of those guys that live in Greenland. You know what I'm saying? So once again, though, you have to look at it as a serious thing. The thing that they consider is what people don't know is as a NATO member, right? There's already United States military installations on Greenland. Thule is one of their most important sites. Missile defense is key there. Like, from a strategic point of view, it's actually not hard to understand where Trump rationalizes. Let's just go ahead and claim this entire hemisphere, right? It's nice and neat from a strategy point of view. You have essentially one of the closest areas to the North Pole, all the way down to, Argentina, which is also essentially a United States client state, and from a military point of view, it becomes easy to block off traffic to literally half of the world, Will it happen? I mean, there's no reason to believe that Trump is not a man of his word as it comes to taking territory. But this isn't, I think it's wrong to make this just a Trump project. This has been a strategic interest of the United States of America that they have worked towards for more than 20 years. And again, I bookend it by saying there's already installations of American troops there. So if they wanted to act, it probably wouldn't take a lot. It wouldn't be as complicated a thing, say, as the Russians in Ukraine. It's probably the kind of thing they could sort out pretty quick. But I think if it happens, it'll probably just happen economically. It's a European country. You don't want them to lose too much face. And this is the kind of thing that probably can happen for just money. So if I had to guess, I would say the Greenland thing, if it happens, will probably happen economically. Denmark will be greatly incentivized to financially take a deal, and they probably will.
There was this thing, I don't know if you remember this, is when a few years ago when there was the referendum in Crimea, it's a big uproar all over America, and people were like, you can't just take land anymore. We passed that. We live in a world now. We got the UN, we got international law. We're not in the times of conquest anymore. And that was all we heard about when it came to Crimea. And now it doesn't seem too far off that within the next 18 months, Greenland, possibly Canada, we already have places that we've been advocating for. You talking about Greenland, you are absolutely right. And it's a great point to make. And the same thing should be said for Hawaii and
Canada.
Canada is certainly, supposed to be for the indigenous. But again, it might go the way of Greenland. Essentially, you're just going to be under the occupation of a different colonizers, the Americans.
It would be
now.
a very small time window between Greenland becoming a part of the United States and not Canada.
Yeah,
Canada
you'd have to think that's a quick domino.
Absolutely, there's a counting timer on that one.
And Americans still, we're still having these bases in Puerto Rico, which they don't want there either. I mean, it's just like Hawaii. They don't want that there either. So America is already let's be honest. America is already existing in this way of colonialization. And these countries are not better off because America is, a huge part of their government or their government in general. They are bent on destabilizing and controlling South America. I think that they're going to find a lot of blowback. But
we talked about destabilization. All right. I just wanted to run back to this because this is something that people ask quite a lot. What did the Chavista, revolution do? Okay. The Bolivarian revolution. Okay. So let's look at GDP. I'm just going to run you through some stats. In 1999, the GDP per capita in Venezuela was $5,150. I would like to say these stats, by the way, are from the book Bad News for Venezuela, 20 Years of Fake News and Misreporting. And these numbers come from the United Nations. Okay. Poverty in 1999 was 49.4% of the population. In 2012, it was 20%. 5.4%. Look at these type of reductions, right? Extreme poverty. In 1999, 17.9% of the population. By 2012, it was 7.1%. School enrollment. 1999, under 50%. By 2012, over 75%. Nourished population. From 2020 to 2022, 3.8 million. From 2010 to 2012, not statistically significant number, close to zero. Doctors per 10,000 inhabitants, 1998, 18. 2012, 58. Number of free health clinics built from 1999 to 2012, 7,000. Number of people receiving old age pensions in 1999, 0.39 million. 0.39. Okay. By 2012, it was 2.1 million. The reason I'm cutting these numbers off at 2012 is because it's impossible to look at any number that comes out of Venezuela after 2012 without adjusting for the damage that has been done specifically by United States blockades and sanctions on the country, which did not allow for other countries to do regular type business with Venezuela, which is why Venezuela was forced to do business with countries like China and Russia, because these were countries that did not fear the American sanctions. And so anything that talks about, contemporary stats in Venezuela without looking at the damage done specifically to that economy by the Americans is not honest. To say that the people in Venezuela were not receiving much better attention from the government in a positive way that was changing people's lives and pulling them out of poverty, that is what Hugo Chavez and that is what Maduro did for those people. And there is a reason why the wealthy class, the aristocracy class, hates that. Because essentially he is freeing the slaves, economic slaves, as it were. And so I just want to throw those numbers out there because it's important that people have these facts, right? When they talk about what Maduro did and what was happening with the Bolivarian revolution in Venezuela. And it's also important to acknowledge this was a bloodless revolution. This was a revolution that took place at the ballot box, which is exactly the way that the West says they want to see these things. This wasn't like Cuba, where, for good or bad, a military overthrew the Batista government and set up a whole new government. This was the government that existed, and a party came in and really used their resources to change the lives of the people. That's unforgivable in the West.
Yeah, no, that's a fact. That's a fact. And we all know that the Venezuelan economy has been doing better and better and better despite the sanctions, because Russia and China are showing them how to win with those sanctions. And Cuba has been doing it for a while. And it's just to let you know how impressive Cuba has been. And it is interesting. You said that you mentioned that there is no, this is like a bloodless revolution in a lot of ways, done by democracy. And that's what, dude was getting at. He's like, we got to get rid of that president and this president. I want to just say that al-Shara, FKA al-Julani, the leader of...
He hasn't even had an election. No talk on when elections will be, but this person was greeted and I forget about al-Julani, man. Mr. HTS.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I mean, it's just a lot of hypocrisy and a lot of things going on. So it's pretty obvious, I think. Again, a lot of people, the trolls in the comments, they really don't have much. They're grasping at straws. We try to bring you out the facts, and we don't have an agenda. We are trying to, but also there has to be some bias. There has to be we have to pick a side. I can't just be completely unbiased and I'm a little biased, okay? And I'd like to say the things that I'm for, and I wish international law and all this stuff mattered and the UN, and it doesn't. It's about force, and it's about we take it. And it just reminds when we say the United States could just go take Canada, what would happen? Nothing. They can't fight the United States. Greenland can't fight the United States. This is the same thing we mean when we talk about Russia. Russia could just run through Europe. I mean, they don't have the military power to deal with that. And this is why you have to align yourself with a major power, because at the end of the day, even regional powers like Iran, we talked about Venezuela, and they had a large standing army. They have their own weapons, or at least they have things that can be used if there were to be a ground invasion. And America just said, well, we don't believe that you have great statecraft. We don't believe that your people around you are loyal enough to you, so we'll just exploit that. And that's just sort of how it goes. And America's constantly working. I was reading this article, about mice, and mice getting into your house and all those other things. And it's like, no matter what you do, no matter how many boards you put up and how many seals you got, mice are persistent. And that's the United States. They're persistent. Maybe you're strong enough to deal with them now, and maybe they take a step back, but they are persistent, and they're going to stay on you the entire time. I want to give a shout out to our podcast listeners. We're available wherever you find podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all that good stuff. Patreon.com/InnerCityLeft. Budding, loving, wonderful community. And we thank everybody. We also have free subscriptions. Just say hello. InnerCityLeft.com, Fables, Foibles, Other American Sins. I've been forgetting to say this. Inner City Left on Instagram. That's where we do most of our work. Amin TMK, Lil Tanky ICL on Twitter. We be posting stuff. Follow us. And new music, Deepfake. We just dropped that yesterday. We drop new music like crazy, guys. We're hard workers. We're hard working for the revolution. And our music is about revolution. And it's about music to revolt to and rebel to. And that's that. Anyway, those are my things. Tanky, what do we miss? I know there's a lot we wanted to get to today.
Yo,
some
I
final
would be
thoughts.
remiss to not comment on the individual that was murdered by ICE in Minneapolis. But the thing I want to remind everybody is, in your moment of sorrow, right, you're joining some of us who've been there. The Palestinians have been there consistently. This is what they've been experiencing. Like, what you're feeling, tap into that and stay tapped in. Black people been feeling that. Philando Castile was killed in, I think, the very same city years ago. This man was a legal, he was a citizen. He didn't have any warrants. This man was a lawfully registered concealed carry. All of the things that they say they want you to do, right? Like, this is why geopolitics is important, because less than a week before I shot that woman in her face, the American government went into Venezuela, grabbed the first lady of Venezuela, and handled her roughly. And it just bothers me as a progressive and as an activist that I don't see hardly any conversation about that. This was the first lady of Venezuela. They roughed her. You look at photos, she got like blackened eyes and whatnot. Like, I'm gonna need y'all to stay tapped in, right? Not just when, conventional Americans feel the pain, because people in the margins been feeling that pain. Brown people been feeling that pain. Palestinians been feeling that pain. Stay tapped in, right? Feel what you feel about this, and no one is trying to diminish it. But please understand that a lot of us been here in this sorrow. We've been wading in the sorrow, and we welcome you here. We seek out company, seek out community, but understand not to take up too much space, because community been in this space. We've been holding space for those that we've been losing, and we've been losing for a long time.
Yeah.
Some of y'all are new to losing, but we've been telling y'all this is coming and this is what it is.
Yeah, it's a continuation of the disappearing of people. And that's really the main thing here, the unaliving and disappearing of people. What happens when you think ICE jumps into, a house and helicopters in or whatever and takes somebody to a undisclosed facility, whether it's one of those alligator Alcatrazes or whatever it is. Those people a lot of times do not see the light of day again. Indigenous
Fred Hampton was
women,
shot in his bed,
yeah,
asleep in his bed.
Yeah, indigenous women are, it's an epidemic right now with them going missing. That continues. And, again, it's just a reminder, there's no rules. Don't follow rule. I mean, don't think the rules or the laws are going to save you. They never were there to protect you and save you. And we just got to remember that as we move forward, I think. Or some of us have known that and maybe forgot, or some of us already know that and we just need to have it reinforced. This is why, we talk to people like Denzel Curry, and, big shout out to him, teaching us how to protect ourselves and be safe, in a way that protects community. It's not about, being a badass or machismo or any of those things. Just about, these are the people I love and I want to keep them safe. And respect to the people, like the woman that was unfortunately killed by ICE, because they were out there trying to protect other people. They put themselves on the line
respect that
for
shit,
the less, those people that are being oppressed, highly oppressed, white supremacy, kind to destroy them every day. And for that's what we're asking of, activists that, are white, is like, you got to put yourself in harm's way because everyone else is already in harm's way. And it also is to let you know, again, when the Black Lives Matter, when the George Floyd and Breonna Taylor protests of 2020 happened, 310 people were murdered by the police, and countless more people who were black bagged and taken to other sites, people who were arrested, thousands of people, 50 out of 50 states protested. They know that there is a lot of political unrest in this country, and just remind ourselves of that time and all those other things. And I think we can remember that the United States is the most violent, the most dangerous country in the world right now. And we live here in the belly of the beast. This is something that Che Guevara talked about with Americans. We have the toughest job because we're in the belly of the beast. So remember those words from Che. I try to. And anyway, any final thoughts actually before we slide, bro?
Man, that's what it is.
Yeah, much love to y'all. For Amoja Lil Tanky Summer, I'm Amin TMK. This is the Inner City Left broadcast.
System riding to the core. Yeah. Reppin' Inner City Left.